why Baldur's Gate 3 is not coming to the Xbox Series right now. I think we'll start with that. So I think one of the things that I like about that is that actually Plagman actually gave the answer to someone. Was like, "Hey, how can I force Steam Deck to force split screen mode?" And he's like, "Oh, just do whatever Command Zero, Steam Deck Zero, and Command in the arguments, Steam arguments when you're launching a game, the game." And someone got it running and was like, "Oh, well, I guess you can run it on something that's extremely underpowered." And sure enough, in certain areas, it goes down to like 14 FPS. But I think the key thing here is that a lot of people are looking at the Series S in a weird light, and um, there's a part of me that thinks that it's. I don't like that people are convinced that the Series S is this vehicle to slow down the next generation of games, or it is anything other than. Um, Personally, I feel like it's a better mechanism to almost force optimization on. It works for Windows as well as it does on Xbox because how tied Xbox is to Windows now. But if Larian is having difficulty getting that game running in a split screen mode, and CPU wise, all of these platforms are effectively the same: PS5, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X. Steam Deck only has 4 cores, but it's still basically the same thing. If the only determining component is actually the GPU, then that is something that I think is an interesting angle to look at in terms of insofar as that is the exact thing that Microsoft was saying, is that this is going to scale in resolutions, this is going to scale in effects, not so much from CPU because CPU is matching on across all of them. So that is something that, I mean, also I'm saying this from the greedy side of myself, knowing that an Xbox Series S, especially forcing every developer to make that, makes a cleaner landing pad for an Xbox handheld to happen. So there is
Yeah.
that desire from me that I really like the. I think that if Microsoft said we're coming out with a handheld, it's going to be running the Xbox Series S profile on it, everyone's going to be like, oh, that's actually pretty good, instead of, hating on it as much as they did. So
I think
that is, go ahead.
I was to say I think something you're not saying outright necessarily, and maybe you are also saying, maybe you're not. It feels like it's become fodder for fanboy arguments, right? Like
Yeah.
that's all it really is. And I saw one tweet just as an example, and I don't know if I'm not going to attribute malice to this tweet. It could just be that they were out of the loop. But I saw one tweet that didn't even mention the split screen, right? And it was just like saying that what you're implying, right? Like the Series S is holding back the generation, and they even use Steam Deck as something in their argument where they're saying it runs on the Steam Deck. Why doesn't it run on the Series S? When I would think damn right that the reason it doesn't run on the Series S is literally just the split screen, which is also disabled on the Steam Deck. So that part of the conversation is being left out, and I think it's precisely because it's fanboy fodder. But again, to be fair, it could just be that this person wasn't up on what happened, but it just seems like people are just using it as to fuel the console wars.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a part of me that thinks that Microsoft is working hand in hand with AMD pretty hard. So they have some type of forecast. They see some roadmap that not everyone is privy to until months later, right? So ostensibly, there was some forecast for at least FSR 2, right? A upscaling technology that you can run at lower resolutions and then upscale do image reconstruction. I don't know if, like in 2020, FSR 3 was a planned feature, because when you look at the Xbox Series consoles, they are full fat RDNA 2 versus what the PS5 has, which is a mixed breed. So when you look at it, there could be an argument that when FSR 3 comes out, when you have frame interpolation going into there, now all of a sudden, instead of hitting 15 FPS, you can go to 30 FPS. And if they can successfully achieve that, that is going to be interesting. But all the optimizations that people are doing to get to the Series S right now, and then to then piggyback when FSR 3 becomes a reality, that's going to be very interesting for the Series S, but also for a handheld, but for the entire ecosystem that they've been kind of pushing since 2020. So yeah, that's kind of target the thing that I want to discuss right now is that I think from an optimization standpoint, it's certainly possible, because if it seems like the only thing that's really holding it back is GPU resources, then the Series S has enough muscle there, provided that you can, especially with FSR2, which is I thought that is coming for Baldur's Gate 3, right? It's not there right now, but it
It's
is.
not, but it is in the future, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, so I would suspect myself personally that when FSR2 is implemented, that the Series S should be able to leverage that, and then you're going to see something that the Series S might have meet certification. So that's where my eyes would be currently.
Well, one more thing in the like to keep in mind for this is that Baldur's Gate 3 for PC, the release date was moved up, right? This was meant to be released a few months later, almost 2 months later, I want to say. So they're kind of scrambling. They were kind of scrambling to get it out. That's why reviewers didn't get a review copy until pretty late. So this is it. It's all still pretty developing. So yeah, just give them time, I would say.
Yeah.
And I saw some tweets that were like, it's time to ditch the Series S. It's holding everything back. And that's so ridiculous. First off, Microsoft made a promise. When they came out with the Series, they said, hey, the games that you get on your Series X are also going to be the games that run on the Series S. And if they renege on that now, that's not cool. So for people calling for them to ditch the Series S because it's delaying the release of Baldur's Gate 3 on that system, I think is a ridiculous thing. I'm sorry, Carrie, you were about to say something.
No, so I mean, let's just take it from a whiz-biz type of decision, right? If you are going to be PC and it's a CRPG, so that's where you know that you're going to have the strongest buyers, right? That's where all the people are going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how many PlayStation people buy Baldur's Gate 3 because it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see what the sales numbers are, considering how I see, like everyone's talking about concurrent numbers right now, and it's like breaking like the top 10 of all time concurrent. So it's going gangbusters. And I think from the optics of that alone, people are like, well, if so many people are playing it, I should be getting this. But outside of that, when you were like for Larian to say, okay, we're going to go PC first, if we have to specifically optimize for the next console, we have to do PS5 because that's where the biggest place is going to be. And Xbox by default, because of where it is, they can't devote any resources to it that are going to match whatever the PS5 is if the lion's share of the money is going to be coming from PS5. So there's almost a part of me that would say, okay, I can understand that point of view as well. But yeah, there's a lot of different tweets. There's like some PlayStation fanboys that are like saying, Baldur's Gate 3 is a PlayStation exclusive. And the CEO was like, no, it's not an exclusive. and they're like, well, it's only on that system. So, you can say whatever you want, but until that happens. So it's a weird situation right now, but I can totally understand it from a business decision, why they went the route they did.
Good point on the PlayStation. It turns out at Benji Sells, he tweeted that it moved up to the #1 best-selling pre-order on PSN in the US. So it definitely, the PC reception has definitely had an impact on pre-orders.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Russ, what do you think about this?
It's interesting. I don't know if I said it on air or off air, but I am planning on now getting a Series X. And it has nothing to do with power or anything. It's because my Xbox One, it's just a huge machine. I have the old school one, and it just takes up so much space, but I still have a bunch of disc games. And I can't play them unless I have that huge box. And so I was like, you know what? Let me get rid of my Series S and the Xbox One and now have an Xbox Series X. And it's funny because it has nothing to do with performance, none of that stuff. I could care less about it. It's just that I want to be able to play my older games. I'm actually kind of lamenting this even before I do it because I'm like, oh, it's going to be bigger. I don't want to have that much space, because the X is just huge, So I'm listening to all this and I'm like, this is really interesting, that there's people who are kind of speculating about, why it's not being released and all this other kind of stuff. And for me, I'm just like, well, I just want to play an old Xbox One game without having to rebuy it. That's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is interesting. And I'm holding off until we get, whether or not there's going to be news if there's a Starfield limited edition Xbox Series X, and then I'll get it. So
I 100% guarantee there's going to be a Starfield limited edition Series X. There's no way that they don't put it out. If Carrie picks one
like
up and he's
money.
like,
So this
Wow.
this thing is so sweet.
for the audio listeners, Carrie's holding up the Starfield like Microsoft headset, and it is gorgeous.
My controller's upstairs. I actually got both of them. Just because I love the styling. I bought the Halo limited edition Xbox Series X just because I'm a huge Halo fan. So if they come out with Starfield, I'm going to be in trouble because then I'm going to have 3 Series X's, and I don't need that many. I don't need 2.